A potentially major storm could be coming to the United States, bringing heavy wintry precipitation like freezing rain and sleet, as well as significant severe weather like tornadoes across portions of the central to eastern United States vicinity. All the information as to when, where, and how this will be forming will be coming up later on in the video. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nate. I also go by Hockey Boy and Nate. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. I cannot do it justice as to how much we are going to talk about, so you're just going to have to stay tuned to the video here. If you're new to my channel, please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to stay up to date with all the latest information that I do provide. All the information that I will provide will most likely be about life-threatening storms, so please be sure to tune in if you can, as well as like the video to help me get this out to as many people as possible on YouTube. That's how YouTube's algorithm works, so you're helping me spread information about this potentially significant storm. And then let's just get straight into the video here with the satellite imagery. You can take a look here across the board. We have a lot of these clouds that are just kind of flowing from the southwest to the north and east. And that is mainly because there's this giant dip in the jet stream right here that connects all the way down into the eastern Pacific. And you can see that there's this swirling storm right off of the coast of Baja California and southwestern portions of California, and that is our low pressure system that is stirring everything. But as we zoom in here, we can see that we have a bit of a severe weather risk here according to the Storm Prediction Center. This light green here is a general thunderstorm risk, so it's not that too important. But then you also have these areas of the dark green and yellows, and I'll actually take away the satellite imagery here for you just to see how vast this risk is. You can see the 1 out of 5 on the dark green and the 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale in the yellow. So wherever you guys are, that is your risk for severe weather. And this can include places like Dallas, Fort Worth, all the way up into Paris, into Texarkana, Little Rock, Memphis, Jackson, Nashville, even into Paducah and areas of western Kentucky. So watch out for that if you can, because there is expected to be severe weather tonight into tomorrow. And there is expected to be more severe weather here from Saturday into Sunday by taking a look at the day 2 convective outlook here from the Storm Prediction Center, which is for New Year's Day. This is the 1st of January, the turn of the year here into 2022, and it seems we're going to be getting a bit of a rude awakening here with a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale in green, 2 out of 5 in yellow, and 3 out of 5 in orange. So wherever you guys live within these areas, you guys need to watch out for it. There's these cities here at the bottom part of your screen. If you're in one of them, I highly recommend you watch out for this. I will most likely be live streaming tomorrow, all right? That's going to be a given. So if you guys would like to tune back into this channel, I will be doing a live stream that basically talks about what these thunderstorms are going to be doing as to how they are tornadic and where they will be heading off towards. So if you're interested in that, or if you know anyone who's interested in that, feel free to tell them to stay tuned to the channel, as I will be providing that information. But taking a look a little bit more in depth as to what the Storm Prediction Center believes could potentially be the risks here. Let's go over to the hail. You see a 5% in brown, 15% in yellow. So whatever probability you have, that is your chance of seeing 1-inch size hail or larger within a 25-mile radius. Taking a look at the wind here, you can see they added a red area here, which is a 30% chance. And whatever probability you have, that is your chance for 58-mile-per-hour winds within a 25-mile radius as well. And then the tornado risk, which is honestly, in my opinion, the most significant risk out of the 3 for this event. You do have a 2% chance indicated in green, 5% in brown, and then a 10% in yellow. And that is your chance of seeing a tornado within a 25-mile radius as well. But the one thing that I want you guys to pay attention to is inside this 10%, you see a lot of these dotted lines here, these black dotted lines, and this is actually a significant severe risk. It's called a hatched risk area, which basically means that you have a 10% chance or greater probability of having an EF2 tornado or stronger within a 25-mile radius as well here. So they're expecting potentially significant tornadoes within this area. And as I said, this is probably the risk here that could get upgraded to a moderate. This is the heavy risk here for severe weather from this event. And if it were to be upgraded to a 4 out of 5 on the severe weather scale, it would be because of those tornadoes. And last but not least, this is the second here, which is on Sunday. You can see a massive 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale, but I would not be surprised if they upgraded this to a 2 out of 5. So watch out for that. I'll go a little bit more in depth on that when we get into tomorrow's video. All right, so now we're gonna take a look at the weather models, and I need you guys to kind of bear with me here because I'm gonna be talking about a lot of stuff. Like, no joke, it's a lot. And we're going to kind of dissect it into two portions. We're going to be talking about the winter weather first, and then we're going to be talking about the severe weather afterwards. And don't just skip through the winter weather, because this stuff, you may think that you can't really go too in-depth with winter, but believe me, you're going to be pretty surprised when you see this type of stuff. So let's take a look here at the reflectivity, the simulated radar here from the North American model. We're also going to be using the HRRR when we can, to kind of get a little bit better idea as to what could be happening, but we're going to be using the NAM for the winter aspect of this. The timing is above me, of course, in Eastern Daylight Time, so if you're in Central or in Mountain, you're going to have to adjust to your time periods. Central, you subtract 1 hour. Mountain, you subtract 2 hours. You can see how originally here on Friday morning into Friday afternoon, not really a whole lot of stuff occurs. You might see some snow squalls and move about, but then you start to get a lot of snow here across the Rockies, which is good for skiing up there. You guys are definitely going to enjoy that. But then what people aren't going to enjoy afterwards is this. Look at this here from Friday into Saturday. Early Saturday morning, significant amounts of wintry precipitation here in the salmon and kind of purplish, as well as the dark blues indicating a lot of frozen precipitation. Blue is snow, the salmon is sleet, and the purple is freezing rain. And you can see how that really fires off rather quickly into the Saturday morning hours, and this will continue to be the case as this moves through into portions of Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, and Illinois, and this will continue to just beat down on these areas. A lot of frozen precipitation expected, but then as you head off into Saturday evening, you can see how that coverage of frozen rain and sleet actually starts to deplete a bit, and that's kind of the good news here, is that as this continues to move off further and further towards the northeast, then the storm really doesn't produce as much frozen precipitation. It ends up just being more either snow or rain, so that is the good news there, but you can see how much snow actually forms from all this as it continues to move about. And now we're going to take a look at the 500 millibar wind shear, which is about 6 kilometers above ground level. That's where we're looking at with these winds. And you can see our low pressure system down here off the coast of California and Baja California, which represents what exactly is happening right now. So we know that this model is somewhat accurate for at least the beginning of the model. But then as this continues to move on through, you can see the low pressure system just kind of dig through the United States into the central portions of it. You have this new low pressure system that kind of builds with it. That's the reason why you have this kind of loop right within here. And this massive low pressure system is just going to kind of sit over here. We have two of them that is kind of just going to be along one giant trough, one giant dip in the jet stream right here. And this is what's going to create your really interesting weather here. You're going to have winter weather on the northern end, and then you're going to have severe weather on the southern end. And we'll talk about the severe weather, as I said, a little bit later. But just to take a look at some of the values here of shear, we have wind shear values in upwards of 117 knots, which is about 130 to 135 miles per hour. That is insane amounts of wind shear here, especially for most severe weather events. You can see how it continues to be the case here. The trough actually gets stronger and stronger as it heads off into Sunday too. And so this is a pretty strong low pressure system, a pretty strong trough that is moving through in the upper levels. Now, I want you guys to kind of visualize something here for me real quickly, all right? Imagine snow forming higher in the atmosphere, about 5 to 6 kilometers above ground level, and it starts to fall throughout the sky. Now, it's pretty cold up in the atmosphere, so that's the reason why it's snow in this instance instead of rain. If it was a lot warmer, then yes, we would be talking about rain falling from there. But in this case, we're going to be talking about snow. And this is the 700 millibar temperature here in Celsius, which is about 3 kilometers above ground level here. And you can see across much of this area here within a lot of this like white and green, this is all 0 degrees Celsius and below, which is freezing point for Celsius. That's 32 degrees Fahrenheit and below. So that's all you really need to know about that. If you don't see any of the whites, then it's above the freezing point, and that's when it starts to melt and stuff. For the most part here, you can see how the general vicinity here has a lot of these whites and greens, which tells me that it is pretty frozen in that portion of the atmosphere. So the snow falls down, and it's going through that cold air, it's still snow. But then as it goes lower and lower to the ground, we go to 1 kilometer above ground level, and you can see that the temperature actually warms up significantly. You can see how the 0 degrees Celsius line is now super far north into portions of Kansas, Nebraska, and Iowa. And this basically means that areas north of that will probably get snow, but then areas south of that, that snow then turns into rain as it falls down towards the ground. So you have snow up above it, falls down because it is warmer and it starts to go over that freezing point. It turns into rain. And then if we take a look here at the temperature at the ground, as it falls back down, it starts to turn back into that freezing precipitation. So you have that rain, and then as it gets closer to 32 degrees Fahrenheit over in these areas, even to 26 degrees, anywhere below 32 degrees, all right? If you see this kind of whitish area right within this here, that is going to be where the areas of rain start to turn back into frozen precipitation, like freezing rain or sleet, and that's the reason why we're going to have a lot of issues here with winter weather. So some of the totals here could look something like this. Heavy amounts of frozen precipitation, like freezing rain, is possible across portions of southeastern Kansas into central Missouri, as well as western Illinois. Some frozen precipitation amounts here from freezing rain could be almost 3/4 of an inch. That is pretty significant. That could easily topple trees and power lines, create widespread power outages. So if you live within these areas, or if you even live north of these areas, you have to watch out for this. And if you move on to the sleet here, the sleet is very much so widespread, with heavy amounts here into portions of northeastern Missouri into western Illinois and southeastern Iowa. That general area is going to be a relative hot zone for heavy sleet and frozen precipitation. So if you guys live within those areas, definitely need to watch out, because some sleet amounts could be almost 2 inches in total. And then of course, if we take a look at the total snow accumulation, we have some areas here in the pink across portions of Nebraska and Iowa, which means that you could have some amounts of snow that is in upwards of a foot. But the main priority here, the main risk for all this wintry precipitation is going to be that freezing rain and sleet, and how that could create some very hazardous conditions for either travel or for power outages. And one extra thing that I do want to talk about is that along this time period here, there could potentially be some blizzard-like conditions with some of the wind gusts here. You can see as this moves on through from Saturday morning into the late Saturday morning, we have some heavy amounts of wind gusts here in miles per hour, which is over 35 miles per hour. If you have over 35 mile per hour winds or wind gusts, then you could be experiencing blizzard-like conditions if you have snow with it too, because the visibility is going to be almost zero in some spots. So yeah, this is definitely something to watch out for as this continues to move on through and even into the afternoon of Saturday, to where there could still be blizzard-like conditions in the portions of Nebraska, Iowa, and even into Illinois and maybe even Wisconsin. So definitely something that you would need to watch out for if you're in those areas. And just taking a look at the residual amounts of the storm as this moves off towards the northeast, there is your frozen rain totals, there is your sleet totals there, and then there is your snow totals, which basically stays north of the US-Canada border. So places like Quebec and Montreal could be seeing some snow here from Saturday into Sunday. So definitely something to watch out for. And then of course areas here in Michigan and the Great Lakes definitely could watch out for some snow over there as well. All right, so now that we've talked about all the winter weather, let's go into the severe weather here. And we're gonna go with the simulated radar here from the HRRR, because I think it has a better grasp as to what this environment could potentially be capable of. And let's just take a look here from Friday into Saturday, first off, talking about today's risks. So look here, you can see how you have some general showers and thunderstorms that form across portions of Mississippi and Alabama. This does have a lot of energy over here, so watch out for that. Could be some heavy rain with hail and damaging winds. Maybe even a chance for a tornado or two is possible, but not exactly the main risk here, because as this moves on through later and later on into the day, you'll see a lot of these showers and thunderstorms that'll begin to start and pop up here into portions of Arkansas. And this is going to continue to basically form this massive line that'll kind of move from the Appalachians all the way through into the Ozarks and into portions of Texas as well. So just this entire line here could create some strong damaging winds, large hail, and the chance for tornadoes. But then as this moves on into tomorrow, you see that line really start to kind of gain shape and form into a bit more of this QLCS type form of a storm. That was an amazing rhyme, 10 out of 10. And this line is going to continue to move on through and create some strong damaging winds. Now, the one thing here that I have to say is that the line could potentially produce tornadoes inside of it, but that is not going to be the main risk here. Watch as this continues to move on through here from the early afternoon hours into the late afternoon hours to where you have more showers and thunderstorms that form out in front of this. And this is the risk here for your significant tornadoes. These storms that form out in front of this line could potentially create your significant tornadoes across the board. And we have a lot of those showers and thunderstorms that begin to form out in front of it across the late afternoon into the evening hours to where it could potentially be an overnight event again. So if you live within these areas, you need to watch out for the potential for some severe weather, especially for tornadoes, because that could definitely happen here. And then as this moves from Saturday into Sunday, you can see the massive line continues to move on through into portions of the southeast and mid-Atlantic. And then as this moves from Saturday into Sunday, you can see how this continues to move on through. It's going to be this giant, massive line that'll create some strong damaging winds. You might have a chance for a tornado or two, but anywhere in front of this line, you guys need to watch out. Maybe if you're a little bit further south of like Daytona Beach, you guys shouldn't be all too worried. But if you're north of Daytona Beach into portions of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, even southeastern Virginia, you guys could potentially get some severe weather within your area. So watch out for that. Once again, just for reference, here is our 500 millibar wind shear. And you can see we have a lot of significant wind shear across the board here with this giant trough. So now we're going to take a look at our 850 millibar wind shear. And this basically shows us where the moisture could potentially be coming from, as well as veering with height, because if you have veering that go the correct way, then it could be favorable for supercells, and supercells do most often have a chance to produce tornadoes. So let's take a look at this. You can see here from Friday into Saturday, we have some decently strong wind shear here in these oranges, bringing a lot of moisture here from the Gulf of Mexico and into the general watch area. But then as this goes here from Friday into Saturday, you can see the wind shear begin to significantly increase, and wind shear amounts can get as high as 60 to even 65 knots in some spots, especially with that big line that I was talking about, that big QLCS or quasi-linear convective system. And that could potentially create some hurricane force wind gusts over into those general vicinities. But out in front of it, you can see how strong the wind shear even is, where those renegade supercells could potentially form. And that is the concern as well, in my opinion, as to whether or not there could be some significant weather based off of how strong that low-level jet here is. Around 1 kilometer could determine as to how significant our event could be. Now we can take a look and see how the moisture returns here from the 850 millibar level to the ground level here. So we have dew points here at the ground, a lot of this moisture across portions of Louisiana and specifically into the Gulf of Mexico, as well as the southern portions of most states. And you can see how that rises here all the way up into the general area of the Mississippi-Ohio River Valley, and that'll continue to be the case all the way until we have those showers and thunderstorms overnight from Friday into Saturday, and this will basically form this giant cold front here. This massive line that I was talking about with that QLCS will just basically plow through all of that moisture and continue to basically use it up for the most part, creating some strong damaging winds. And then on the other hand, you can see a lot of this moisture residually over into some of the areas to where we're watching for some of those renegade supercells. So definitely something to watch out for. Of course, we would want dew points above 60 degrees so that we could get severe weather. And because we do have that here in this area, that shouldn't be a big of an issue from a moisture perspective. Now, what could be interesting here is the CAPE levels, or the convective available potential energy, which basically is kind of the food for thunderstorms to either form or sustain. So basically what happens there is when you have warm air rising and cold air sinking in the atmosphere, the displacement between the two, between how fast it rises and sinks, is the amount of energy you have. So the greater displacement, the more CAPE you have, the stronger the environment or the more unstable the environment actually is. So we typically want about 1,500 to 1,800 joules per kilogram CAPE or above in this instance for us to either consider thunderstorms or have them form or sustain. And you would typically want to look out for that when the green starts to shift towards the yellow on your screen. So as this moves on through here, from Saturday morning into Saturday afternoon, we start to see some of those areas here that pop around into portions of western Mississippi and eastern Alabama. And if some of those storms could tap into that energy, I would not be surprised if we had some of those thunderstorms that really kind of fire off. And I would not be surprised if CAPE levels were even higher than what the models said. Lately, the models have been kind of underdoing the amount of energy that has been in the atmosphere in some of these areas. So watch out for that. The potential for that is always possible, and that typically is the case here into winter. So I'll continue to monitor the CAPE levels as we get closer and closer. I'll make a video tomorrow discussing it before our live stream. So if you want to tune back into that, feel free to do so. And then last but not least, I mentioned veering with height earlier on, and a good way to take a look at that here is the helicity. Helicity is basically a good way to determine as to whether or not the environment is favorable for supercells to kind of form. And if you have more veering, then the stronger the environment is for supercells to kind of form. So we can see here from Saturday morning into Saturday afternoon, we have heavy amounts of helicity over here into portions along that QLCS that I mentioned, as well as into the general areas of where the renegade supercells could potentially be. You typically want above 150 storm relative helicity, or even helicity in general, to get these type of storms, and that would be in kind of the dark blues. So the fact that we see greens, yellows, and even reds in some spots is definitely something to watch out for and monitor, especially if tornadic thunderstorms can form along areas of higher helicity. But you also got to realize as to where the main risk is going to be at. We'll go back to the CAPE here and show you all as to how much CAPE is within some of these areas. And because there isn't as much CAPE here into, say, like portions of southern Kentucky, we can assume that areas over in that general vicinity is not going to get as significant weather as areas south of it. So that's the reason why we look at all these different things that go into severe weather to try and determine as to where the significant severe weather could potentially be. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, share this with friends and family and on social media. And we do have our question of the day, the give it to me straight question of the day. If you have waited this late, then here it is. In the comments down below, please give me your answer. So here's the question. I have experienced multiple blizzards, but there has only been one time where I've actually traveled and had a blizzard. What is that area that I traveled to? You can name the city, you could name the area, that I went to, and I'll give you guys a hint. It was in the Northeast, all right? So if you name the area that I traveled to, or if you name it with precision, and if you're the first person to get it right, I'll pin you down in the comments down below. It's almost kind of like the trivia there. So the give it to me straight trivia here for the day, that is the question. And I will see you guys tomorrow with our video. So peace out, everyone.